It's another Thunder Thursday on News OK. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, joined by our intrepid Thunder coverage team from San Antonio, where tonight they'll cover Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. Joining us from a very similar hotel room are the following: Thunder beat writer Anthony Slater, Thunder beat writer Darnell Mayberry, and columnist Jenny Carlson, and columnist Barry Trammell. 3/4 of them representing the Johnny Cash wardrobe style, available to you at JCPenney's. Thunder Thursdays, of course. Target. Thunder Thursdays, of course, are sponsored by our good friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Take that time, drive down I-40, save yourself some time and money. Guys, let's start here. The Spurs B team played out a lot in Oklahoma City in games 3 and 4. In game 4, made things a little more interesting than perhaps Scott Brooks would prefer. Jenny, what did the Spurs B team tell us about what could happen in game 5?
You know, I think it's an interesting question. I'm not sure where Gregg Popovich might come down on using those guys more extendedly. I know Corey Joseph had some success playing that point guard position, but at the same time, if you play Corey Joseph, are you taking the ball out of Tony Parker's hands? To me, that doesn't seem like a real good trade-off. So I don't know if there's going to be any switches in personnel, but, you know, those guys were just motivated to get out there and play well. I think the Thunder let down a little bit, so I'm not so sure that those guys are going to earn a bunch more playing time, those reserves. But it'll be interesting to see if there are any lineup switches and any changes in rotations. Do those guys get in more? I think Corey Joseph is probably the guy at the top of the list in my mind that might see some more playing time.
Barry, will that have any bearing, any of that stuff have any bearing on Game 5?
I think Corey Joseph showed that he was willing to mix it up. I think that's somebody Pop could go to. I think what to look for, if you'll notice, Ginobili's played wonderfully, but he's basically just hitting some trick shots. He hasn't been able to drive the ball that much. I think you're going to see Popovich have to play Parker with a guy who can penetrate, whether it's Patty Mills, Corey Joseph, somebody that can create, because this San Antonio offense, for all its talk about spreading the ball and moving the ball, is not able to create much. It's mainly coming down to Parker, and the Thunder has a pretty good beat on him. So I think that's what to look for, is a unique lineup, maybe 2 point guards.
Darnell, for all the talk about Serge Ibaka tilting this series, and he certainly did, Barry's analysis reminded me of something else. The Thunder's playing 2 point guards. Is it time for the Spurs to counter?
Yeah, it might be, but, you know, I think that second point guard is going to be Patty Mills, not Corey Joseph. And Corey Joseph got in there in garbage time when, as Jenny said, the Thunder let down. And, you know, they were taking the game serious. They wanted to try to win the game, but, you know, it's the NBA. Mike, it's your favorite expression in the NBA. Everybody makes a run. I don't think anything that we saw in Game 4 is going to carry over into Game 5. Pop would have to sit some more talented guys to play Corey Joseph, Jeff Ayers, and Matt Bonner. I don't think he's going to do that.
Anthony, the greatest coach in the NBA for in-game and between-game adjustments is reputably Gregg Popovich. Your move, Pop, what do you see as his move for Game 5 tonight?
Little to no Thiago splitter. Splitter's been pretty bad since Serge Ibaka came back, and Pop's shown in the past, like when they play the Heat and they want to go small, he just will bench Splitter and not play him. I think he'd probably still start Splitter, but he might start Boris Diaw tonight. You know, try to spread the Thunder out a little bit. Try to make Serge Ibaka, you know, go out on some threes, because Diaw can shoot some threes. He's not great at it, but he will shoot them. So I think he's going to go smaller, and I think Splitter's the odd man out.
Guys, we talked about role players. We've been schooled in the idea, the NBA adage, that role players don't travel. Barry, which Thunder role player will best unpack his game tonight in San Antonio?
Well, I think we've moved past the idea that Serge Ibaka is a role player, so not counting Serge. If Reggie's healthy, he's going to be very much an impact player in this game, in this series. The Spurs don't have a ready answer for him. Even if they go small, somebody like Patty Mills can't stay in front of Reggie. So, I think Reggie's got the chance to have a big game if that ankle's good. Now, he said it was, but we'll see.
I saw pictures that you guys tweeted, Anthony, Darnell, of lots of ice packs on the Thunder legs at the shoot around this morning. Darnell, any reason for concern from either Serge Ibaka or Reggie Jackson about their status for Game 5?
Yeah, I think there's reason to be concerned. I think more than concerned, though, I think there's uncertainty. You don't know how they're going to respond on a quick turnaround. It's only been 48 hours since they had to lace them up the last time. And I think, those injuries, they could really take a long time to go away. They're not going to get any better as long as you keep playing on them. They're trying to stay off their feet. Over the last 2 days, they've tried to do as little as possible. But, once they get out there, it's only going to take one wrong movement or one, just freak accident for someone to bump into you or step on your foot for it to get worse. So I think that's the bigger concern. And as Barry said, Serge Ibaka is not a role player. I mean, he's a key cog for this team. Reggie Jackson is a guy who can give you a lot offensively, and that even if he locks in defensively, as we saw against Chris Paul late in one of those games out in L.A., he can be an impact player on that end as well. So, it's just a matter of how much they're going to be able to give you and how effective they'll be.
Jenny, let's talk about the Thunder defense. Of course, we referred to Serge Ibaka tipping this series with his presence and his play. Has the Thunder, therefore, solved San Antonio's offense?
Well, I think that because of the many ways that San Antonio can score, and I think it's always a challenge, and I think you always have to be on guard. As we saw in those first two games, Game 1, it was the 66 points in the paint. Game 2, it was the Danny Green going crazy from 3. So, they've got guys that can score in a lot of different ways. So I don't know if you ever really solve them, but I think they've definitely got a blueprint now. Executing it becomes the key. Are those guys going to stay engaged and locked in and focused when, their backs are no longer exactly against the wall? We've seen this team do this before, getting sort of fight back and really perform well when, they need to, and then maybe they relax a little bit. They can't relax tonight. This is a game that could really be a decider in this series, because if you don't win this one and you want to win the series, you got to come win Game 7 here. And to me, that becomes a much taller task. So they have to mentally lock in, because they know how to do it. They know how to beat them, but they got to go out there and execute it.
Guys, Jenny raises a great question about the looming Game 7 and whether the Thunder really does have a bit of a pad here. I'm interested in your takes on what kind of urgency the Thunder comes out with. Clearly, we saw the levels of urgency go way up when the series shifted to Oklahoma City, but now it goes back. It's a best of 3, and then there's always Game 7. Barry, what do you think about the intensity and urgency the Thunder plays with tonight?
Well, I would hope that in a Game 5, whether you're up 3-1 or 2-2, whatever, I would hope you wouldn't have to worry about urgency. I would hope it would be at the maximum level. But clearly, this Game 5 is the better chance to win in San Antonio than a Game 7. Historically, Game 7s, the pressure for whatever mounts on the visiting team, the road team wins something like 88% of the time. So clearly, the Thunder's best chance to take control of this series is tonight and not potential Game 7.
Anthony?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think they could win a Game 7, but to me, in my mind, I think whoever wins tonight probably wins the series. And they all made the points that needed to be made. Urgency is a big thing. They have Ibaka back. But it's going to be an interesting game.
Darnell, will this game, as much as any game we've seen, tell us about the title intention and title focus of this team?
Look, this series has been so unpredictable that one game doesn't really mean anything for the next. We've seen blowouts. We have yet to see a fourth quarter game. The bench players have really played most of the fourth quarter minutes in this series. So I don't think one game means anything for the next. And that might sound strange. You might sound like coach speak even, because you hear Brooks and Popovich always talk about it. But in this case, I agree with them. If the Thunder comes out and lays an egg tonight, I think they could very well come out in Game 6 and blow out the Spurs at home and then, make it a Game 7 game. And I did some research a little bit ago. The Spurs have only played 2 more Game 7s than the Thunder. The Thunder has 2 of them. The Spurs have 4 under Gregg Popovich. They're 2-2 in those games. 2 on the road, 2 at home. They split at home and split on the road. So it's a tall task to win a Game 7 on the road, but the Spurs have lost a Game 7 before at home, and that suggests that they could lose again to the Thunder at home in a Game 7 if necessary. So even if the Thunder loses tonight, it might not be over, but I do agree with Slater that whoever wins tonight is likely going to win the series.
Along those lines, I'd like to throw out another question to the group about winning on the road. I think the Thunder's 4-4 on the road in these playoffs, having won a potential closeout game at Memphis, having won a Game 6 a series deciding game at the Clippers, but not having won yet at San Antonio. Is that a barrier this team no longer has to worry about, its ability to win on the road, Darnell?
I don't think so. You've seen in this postseason, like you mentioned, they've had success on the road. They haven't in this series, but against Memphis, against the Clippers, they've had success. They're a pretty good road team in the regular season. They find ways to win. And Kevin Durant talked about it this morning at shoot-around, that he feels like they respond best when their back's against the wall, and it's sort of the me against the world attitude on the road when they feel like it's just them versus everyone else in the building. So I don't know if that'll mean anything tonight, but they do definitely play better than most teams do on the road these first 2 games notwithstanding. But they didn't have Serge Ibaka in those first 2 games.
Right. Interesting, Barry. Kevin Durant had a quote yesterday saying the Thunder acted too cool the last time they were in San Antonio. Did you see that? And do you think that was a problem? They just thought, I know they didn't have Serge Ibaka, but how can you be thinking too cool when you don't have Ibaka?
Oh, I don't buy into that. I mean, they were doing fine mentally in terms of that. I mean, I think they were in destitute straits because they didn't have Ibaka. It wasn't anything other than they really didn't know how to play without Ibaka. Still don't, in case anybody's wondering. We saw that in Oklahoma City. They know how to play with him. So all the excuses. Somebody asked him yesterday. The first question yesterday was a fairly long question, and he gave a fairly long answer. But the question boiled down to what was the difference in the 2 games in Oklahoma City and the 2 games in San Antonio. Kevin could have saved a lot of time by just saying Serge Ibaka. They just played much better, much more confident without him. And we know that they don't have their backstop when he's out, and they really don't know how to play like that.
Okay, a lightning round question, piggybacking right on what Barry just said. The Thunder's postseason MVP so far is, and why? Jenny.
I'd say in the postseason, I might give a nod to Russell Westbrook. I think he's had more games that he's been at the top of his game or close to the top of his game. Even if you had to at this point include the postseason and the rest of the season in an MVP question, I'd still go with Durant because of the body of the work over the entire season with Westbrook's injury. But the way Westbrook's played in these playoffs, I mean, he has just been spectacular and really saved him a couple times. So I'd go with Westbrook just because of offensively how keyed in he's been in so many of these games when they've needed him to play at a high level.
Anthony, who's been their postseason MVP?
Russell Westbrook dominated Mike Conley in round 1 when it mattered, dominated Chris Paul in round 2 when it mattered, and then in their 2 wins he was great. I mean, including that 40-10 5-5 game, which maybe his best performance ever. So I think it's clearly been him. Kevin Durant quietly has been kind of inconsistent. And I think the other argument would be Ibaka just because of this series. But I'd go with Westbrook body of work-wise.
Who you got, Barry?
I got Westbrook. Look who he's gone against. He's gone against Conley, who is the heart and soul of the Memphis squad. Gone against Chris Paul, the avowed best point guard in the league. And then you go against Tony Parker, a 3-time champion NBA point guard. And Westbrook has not just held his own, but has excelled. So I think it's clearly Russell Westbrook.
Darnell, a Thunder cover grand slam for Westbrook?
No doubt about it. I'm going with Russell Westbrook. He's been the most consistent Thunder player, and he's also impacted winning more than any other Thunder player.
Guys, I guess today Kevin Durant called Perry Jones III the best athlete in the NBA. Darnell, would he even be the best athlete on his own team?
I don't think it's a stretch to say that he's the best athlete on his own team. I think it is a stretch to say that he's the best athlete in the league, because there's a guy in Miami named LeBron James who's the best athlete on the planet. So I think that's a little much. But Perry Jones, you know, I mean, the obvious guy on this team is Russell Westbrook. But you look at it, I mean, we've heard that Perry Jones is the fastest guy from end to end. He's got the best foot speed. He's probably a higher jumper than Russell Westbrook. If you ever seen Perry Jones in the layup line, he does some incredible things that says, why can't this guy get in the dunk contest? I mean, he is that much, he's that incredible of an athlete. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that he's a better athlete than Russell Westbrook. And Reggie Jackson was also a guy who said it. It wasn't just Kevin Durant. Reggie Jackson was asked, and he confirmed what Kevin Durant said. So I think Perry Jones is right up there.
Barry, you and I believe, are the only members of this panel that remember Battle of the Network Stars. That old thing where they got together and put them through Olympic-style competitions.
Yeah, you're getting your old shows mixed up. Superstars is what it was called.
Well, there was a Battle of the Network Stars,
there
too,
was,
right?
But it was nonsense.
Okay.
Superstars was a semi-legitimate athletic.
All right, let's go more legitimate, because you're right. In Superstars, Bob Dahlgren would square off against guys like, I don't know, NFL stars. But what, Bob Dahlgren, wasn't he a pole vaulter?
Sounds
Bob
like
Seagren? You talking about Bob Seagren?
Bob Seagren, that's right. Bob Seagren. Okay, here's the question, Barry. Superstars, competition. Who you got, Russell Westbrook or Perry Jones?
Well, the problem with Superstars was that a lot of it was particular sports like golf or something that was a little bit of a skill. But the idea that Perry Jones could be the best athlete on this team is absurd. They say he's the fastest end to end. I got an idea for him. Why doesn't he show it every once in a while on the court? That's a guy who never seems to be in a hurry. Let me tell you what Russell Westbrook is when he's playing basketball. He's in a hurry. I personally would rank Perry Jones no better than fourth best athlete on his own team. Somebody wants to tell me he's a better athlete than Serge Ibaka? I'm not buying it. Better than Russell Westbrook? I don't think so.
Okay, Jenny, we'll move from this to tougher interview. A reader asked a question today. Who's the tougher interview, Russell Westbrook or Gregg Popovich?
It's a good question.
Wow. Let me think here. I'd probably say Russell, because you just never know what you're going to get. At least with Pop, he's pretty consistent. You know, you're pretty certain to get a short, curt answer from Pop. And Russell, you just never know. You never know what you're going to get with him. So I'll go Westbrook.
Okay. Barry, you've been called out by Gregg Popovich. Darnell, you've been called out by Russell Westbrook. I'm going to leave you two out of it for a second.
Barry's been called out by Westbrook.
I've been called out by both, and I think we've all been called out by Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anthony, who you got? Tougher interview.
Tougher. I think Popovich is a better interview because it'll actually give you something you might use. But he's also tougher. I mean, you can just feel like the tenseness when he walks up to the podium, and you know, everyone's kind of looking around like, you gonna ask? No, I'm not asking. Barry will jump in. But Westbrook, it's just, I kind of disagree with Jenny. You do know what you're going to get. I think he's just as consistently, you know, short with people, but he just doesn't give anything good. So I think Popovich is a little tougher, but he's also a little bit better of an interview.
Your turn, Barry.
Russell Westbrook is the easiest interview in America for this reason. It doesn't matter what you ask. Good question, bad question, relevant, irrelevant. He's not answering. He's not saying anything. Doesn't matter what you ask. You can be playing video games while you're interviewing Russell Westbrook. You can be doing your knitting. Gregg Popovich, you gotta put your face on. You gotta concentrate. You gotta do some homework. Russell Westbrook's the easiest thing. If my job consisted of doing nothing but interviewing Russell Westbrook, I'd be on a gravy train.
If Russell Westbrook gets a good question, he just goes, no more questions for you, bro.
Yeah.
That's actually...
Not sure. He looks away and says, not sure.
That's actually Darnell's ringtone. It could be. It should be. Darnell, I'm told with Gregg Popovich, you actually have to stop chewing your lunch, too, before you ask him a question. But which of the two is more difficult for you, Darnell?
That wasn't me, for the record.
Okay.
That wasn't me. There's video of who it is, but that wasn't me.
It wasn't all present company accepted. Darnell, who's worse? Who's the worst interview?
The worst interview is Russell Westbrook because he doesn't say anything. And he tries to get snippy while not saying anything. But the tougher interview, I think, is Gregg Popovich because you really have to ask him a direct and to-the-point question, a clear and concise question that is sort of intelligent. If you ask a dumb question, he's going to make you feel dumb. Russell Westbrook has gotten sort of to that point, too. But you just never know with Russell Westbrook. In general, even if you ask an intelligent question to Russell Westbrook, he's not going to give you anything. So I think Russell Westbrook is the harder interview, but Gregg Popovich is a tougher interview, but Russell Westbrook is the worst interview.
Okay, guys, you've done a great job of laying out the storylines for Game 5. Darnell, as much as anybody wanted to turn the page for James Harden, the arrival of Game 5 in San Antonio, 2-2, it makes it unavoidable. Not only did you address that topic of what it looks like now without James, Zach Lowe had another James Harden lick today on Grantland. Very interesting. Of course, his whole solution is amnesty perk, and they could have kept James Harden. So I prefer your story on that one, Darnell. Of course, Anthony addressed the block shot and the incredible wall the Thunder's putting up around the rim. Barry, the point guard comparisons, the eerie similarities between Tony Parker and Russell Westbrook. And Jenny, thanks. Thanks for taking on the question of why is Scott Brooks so snippy and what took him so long? All of that.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think we might have cracked him a little bit between Barry and I yesterday talking to him about that. I think he might have seen the light. I think he might have realized he had been in a snippy mood. He stood around and talked to people afterward. He hadn't done that in a while. I think it might have been some therapy that we were doing yesterday.
I think it was just the fact that me and Slater weren't around.
I would agree with
Could
that.
be.
Sometimes when you guys leave the room, it does brighten. There's no doubt about it.
Good cop, bad cop.
All of that said, there's a game tonight. Who you got, Anthony?
Spurs. Spurs are favored by 4. They're back at home. I know they haven't beat the Thunder without Ibaka, but to be honest, I really don't have zero clue what's going to happen in this series because after Game 2, we thought it was for sure gone, and now everyone's going to be picking the Thunder because of what they've done. I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but the Spurs are slightly favored. I'll give them a slight nod.
You pick Spurs. We're not letting you back out of it. Darnell.
I'm going with the Spurs. I think it's going to be the first competitive game that we've seen. I also think that the fact that the Spurs are at home, their role players are going to play much better. Danny Green, he averaged 18.5 points in those first 2 games, dipped all the way to 5.5 points in the middle 2 games in Oklahoma City. So I think the role players are going to play better. And I also think Gregg Popovich is going to make a subtle adjustment and play smaller for the majority of the game, for more of the game, and try to suck Ibaka away from the basket and open up those driving lanes. So I think there are going to be some small adjustments made by Gregg Popovich and the Spurs, and I think the role players are going to feel more comfortable in their own building.
Great point, Darnell. Barry, before you give me your pick, is it possible you could play small enough to get Ibaka away from the rim?
Yeah, although I tell you, the Thunder's got some options though to avoid that. It's not like when they play Miami, I think the Thunder's in trouble if they play Miami because Miami can suck Ibaka away from the rim. I'm not sure that the Spurs can. What are they going to play Tim Duncan out on the 3-point circle? I don't think so. That's not anything like what they do. So I think they're probably right. Probably will go small, but I don't know that it's going to get Ibaka too far from the basket.
Who you got?
Boris Diaw can't shoot like Chris Bosh, so there's the big difference.
Barry, who you got? Game 5.
You know what? I'll take the Thunder. We've been talking about this 2012 redo, and Thunder came back here 2 years ago with a lot of momentum and rode it to victory. And I think they're better equipped now. I think the difference between them and the Spurs now is greater than it was 2 years ago.
Jenny, you got the last word on tonight's game. Who you got?
I'll make it a split. I'll say Thunder win. I think that with Serge Ibaka, they're just a team that's a tough matchup for the Spurs, and I agree with the guys who were talking about a potential tweak to maybe the starting lineup or the rotation to try to go a little bit smaller. I think we will see that, but I just don't think that this is a great matchup for the Spurs when the Thunder has all of its players. So I got Thunder, and I think we are going to see a 12 repeat. I think Thunder in 6. I think they win tonight. I think they go back to OKC and win on Saturday.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for an excellent job of laying it all out today in the Oklahoman. Right now, you can get yourself ready for the game by checking out the stories we referenced here on News OK. And thanks for joining us on this edition of Thunder Thursday. Thunder Thursdays, of course, are sponsored by our good friends at Wheeler Chevrolet. Take that drive down I-40, save yourself some time and money. Thanks.